I'm Alan Wardis, and this is Think Radio Presents Think People. My guest today is fiddler, singer, songwriter, and educator Lizzy Plotkin.
From hardship can come joy. You know, music is a tool for that. So in America, we work hard and we do what we do during the day, and at the end of the day, you get to, whether it's singing about your woes, and from that you reach a euphoria because you're releasing, your woes in the form of a song, or, that story of transcending perhaps your troubles is a big part of roots music.
Think People is underwritten by High Country News, telling the ongoing story of the modern American West. Through in-depth journalism and thought-provoking writing, the magazine has inspired people to act on behalf of the American West for 50 years. Learn more at hcn.org.
Welcome to another great conversation on Think Radio. If you like Think People, then I know you'll enjoy the other shows in the Think Radio Presents family of podcasts. Think Business, a weekly discussion with entrepreneurs, innovators, and disruptors on sustainable business into the 21st century. Think Planet, conversations with thought leaders on important environmental issues. Subscribe to Think Radio Presents on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever else you get great content. And don't forget to help us spread the word by liking our social media channels and sharing the content we post. We're grateful to have you in the conversation on Think Radio Presents. Plotkin grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, though not as a part of the music industry there. However, her family is rich with musical DNA, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Lizzy describes herself as a place-based songwriter, a joyful performance artist, and an empathetic teacher of creative expression. Her fiddling style is a mix of grace and exuberance, strongly influenced by the vast genre of American roots music. She's just completed recording a brand new album called We Will Sing, and is in the process of running a Kickstarter campaign to take it to the next level, get it into your hands. And we're really happy to have Lizzy on the show today. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
I want to start by saying I love your music. I've heard you play so many times in various combinations with other musicians. And I'm not a fan of American roots music per se, right? What we call bluegrass and the sort of the that genre of music. I just am not. But when I watch you play, there's something really special that happens, and I just want to compliment you for that. Let me start with this question, though. Why are you attracted to what you call American roots music? What is it in that genre that sucked you in and turned you into a performer?
Well, there's a lot of things. I just had like 10 things pop into my mind. But I think the two biggest things are that it's really old. I like things that are old because people have been doing them for forever. And so as a modern contemporary artist, I'm able to tap into long lineages of people playing the same tunes and interpreting them in their own way. So you'll go into one song and you'll go on YouTube or go on CDs and hear a million different versions of that song. And I think there's something really magical about being just one of many people to learn from a really old song. That's one of the main reasons. And then the other is connection. I think that roots music, more than anything, connects people from different genres of life.
And why do you say that? What is it about that genre that does that?
I don't know. There's something really down home about it, you know? Like, we all are Americans. We all have interesting, complex histories as Americans. But that's music that's been played here forever, whether it's blues or the old jazz that came from New Orleans or... and when I say roots music, I mean all of that. It's not just bluegrass and old time, although that in Colorado often gets, highlighted. But I love all American roots music, and I think that there's something about playing that really, when someone hears that coming out of someone like me, they made me feel a little bit more connected to their past, or maybe a part of them that, maybe their great-grandmother played the fiddle, and she played that song. And more often than not, I get stories like that when I play. And so I think connection is really a big part of why I play roots music.
Well, because, a lot of cultures really do have distinctive music that belongs to that culture. And it is something that unites them. In American culture, we've kind of lost that along the way. I mean, rock and roll sort of became that for a while, but it's not the same. And why do you think that is?
That's why I do what I do, because it still is the same in roots music. In old time and in bluegrass, you get to play it just like it used to be played, and that's important to me. And I don't know why. I mean, I think things evolve, people change, and we get a little disconnected sometimes from our roots. And then the different genres of music can stray so far from where they came from. And that's maybe a good thing, we're just changing and evolving. But it's pretty fun, I think, to try and really sound like the musicians who used to play American music and people that used to write that music.
Yeah, back when the goal was not to make a lot of money, no one was making a lot of money playing this music.
Yeah.
The goal was connection. As you say, it was brought people together at the end of a long week, maybe, or at the end of a long day.
Yeah, the long day thing. Right.
And when I do listen to this music, I really do feel that this is music that's just for its own sake, and that there's a story embedded. If you had to put your finger on what the story is in American roots music, the sort of the overarching story, what do you think that is?
I think joy. I think that from hardship can come joy. Music is a tool for that. So in America, we work hard and we do what we do during the day, and at the end of the day, you get to, whether it's singing about your woes, and from that you reach a euphoria because you're releasing, your woes in the form of a song, or so yeah, that story of transcending perhaps your troubles is a big part of roots music. The old Carter family tunes, and I mean a lot of those celebrate love or unrequited love, or the classic country stuff too. But I think the stuff that I'm most drawn to in roots music is the blues and the things, or even in fiddle tunes where you can feel where there's tension in that person that wrote that tune, and now there's this exuberant tune coming out of them. And I think that's the story that I love in roots music, yeah.
Which is very different in some ways from the story that you get from popular music. Certainly, I mean, the genre itself is a message. It's acoustic as opposed to technology-driven. Why do you think there's a resurgence these days of interest in American roots and Americana type music when the technology for recording all kinds of music has never been more varied, it's never been more powerful, and yet people seem to be gravitating in larger and larger numbers back to this sort of organic, authentic acoustic sound? Why do you think that is?
It's hard to say exactly why. I mean, if I was 100 years older, I could maybe have some perspective on exactly why this is happening at this point in history. I know why I like it, and I see other young people like me that are drawn to it. I think it's connection. I think we're deprived right now sometimes of that personal connection. You know, we have Facebook and Instagram and all these things that appear to be connecting us, and they really can. But in terms of our day-to-day interactions, the depth of connection that you get with friends and people in your life is maybe, I'll just say it's enhanced by roots music. Like, it's really amazing to sit down and not say a word and have a conversation with someone for 10 minutes with music. And that'll happen sometimes for 30.
Sure.
You know, you literally don't have to say one word.
Well, and speaking of that, that's sort of the music circle kind of thing that happens around American roots music. It's accessible. It's not, you don't have to be an expert in order to bring your guitar to a circle where people are playing this music and to participate. You can be in the conversation too.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely varying degrees of that within roots music, I think, depending on where you find yourself. But I think in general, the genre is very friendly. You literally have to know maybe 1 to 2 to 3 chords on the guitar.
You can get away with that.
You can get away with that. And in fact, sometimes in old-time circles, they'd much rather you play 1 chord than 4. And so, yeah, I think it's accessible. It's approachable. People are usually smiling and laughing when they're doing that. So it's not like some grimaced group of people, you know, that is scary to walk up to. It's a joyful thing. So why not join in? Or
and that includes just lending your voice, even.
Yeah, or lending your ears. You know, like going to festivals, old time gatherings, and festivals all over the country that support roots music. You'll see how happy this music makes people that are just listening to, you know, the effects of people that just want to stand around the circle and absorb what's going on too.
Well, it definitely inspires you to move.
Yes, tap your toes and snap your fingers and shake your booty.
Right. So you come from Nashville. Did you participate at all in the music scene in Nashville when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing the violin since I was 5. Well, 4.5 technically. I asked my mom to pick up the violin, and so I've been playing since I was a young girl. And I think the music scene in Nashville is everywhere. There's no separating yourself from the scene. It's something you absorb, and you know, I wasn't a professional as a kid. I was just a kid, and I took classical lessons and had a wonderful teacher, Deidre Bacco, who was in the Nashville Symphony. And so my exposure to music, roots music, was pretty minimal at that point, but I always knew it was there. And I knew that my father had played it, and so... Yeah,
your father was a musician, a professional musician.
Yes, yeah.
And tell us that story. What sort of music did he play?
He played everything, as I've been told. He was a talented composer and a professional both studio and performer. And he grew up in Pittsburgh, playing classical violin, and picked up the upright bass, I think, next in his teens, and was playing in the jazz bars in Pittsburgh as a kid by 16, and then took a few years to figure out that he needed to go to music school, and ended up at Berkeley and got a composition degree and taught there for a few years in Boston. And then, as the story goes, he met Vassar Clements. Do you know who Vassar is? And he had Vassar in for a workshop to teach hillbilly jazz, which is what Vassar did.
Yeah.
And he said, "Steve, you got to get down to Nashville. Get out of Boston. This is not where you need to be."
Well, when you get advice like that,
from Vassar, you take it.
You pack up the van and you move.
Yeah, so he moved down to Nashville in 78 and played in Stella Parton's band, and was a sit-in musician. He did studio work, and unfortunately he got sick very early on. First diagnosed with lung cancer when he was 35, and he beat it for a few years and had my sister with my mom and me in 1988, and then just 2 years later passed away. So, yeah, he had a short-lived but very vibrant musical life.
Yeah, and I think lives on in your DNA and your musical life. How did that story, and clearly as a 2-year-old you probably don't have much direct memory, but that story has been with you for your whole life, especially as you've developed as a musician. How did that shape the course that you've taken?
It's basically been, I think, the biggest impetus. I have a passion inside of me that is mine, of course, but having almost like a spirit guide. My father is here always when I need him, and music is a spiritual practice for me. So, just being so intrigued always by the kinds of experiences that he had in his life and not knowing them directly, having stories to go off of, but having sort of this mystery to it where I can explore and dig deeper into this path as a musician because I'm guided by him, and I have so much to give because he gave me music.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's a huge part of why I do what I do, and I think about it every day.
Are there songs you've written that you would say are directly influenced by him, maybe even for him?
I have one tune that is ongoing that I haven't released that is sort of a tender, personal song that I sing with him, actually. And but this album, the title track, We Will Sing, it feels like he's a big part of that song. Because, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, my mom always kind of says that he was sort of this Zen character. He was very, always telling her to be more present and kind of shut off her chattery mind, which I always appreciate that advice also. And so my practices around finding presence and being calm and peaceful mostly have to do with living here in the wilderness and being quiet and an observer. And that song that We Will Sing is about that. And I don't know, it just seems like he's just a big part of that song because it's got a lot of that in it. It's kind of got this like
yeah,
listen and then
sing.
And then it comes so naturally when you're quiet and you're able to be yourself and be present. And
what an amazing legacy. And I really think that there's something ineffable about that comes through in your performances. I mean, you can tell when a musician is really connecting with something deep and not just laying out something that is technically correct. And having a story like that certainly helps. You're also a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Who are your students?
Well, should I name them? No.
No, but what kind of person comes to you and says, Lizzy, I want to learn?
A very exuberant 7-year-old girl, usually.
I can see why.
No, I have...
They want to be Lizzy.
Diverse, all ages. I've had students as young as 4.5 and all the way up to 80. And people come to me to learn violin, because I have classical training and I can offer that. A lot of like people and families like to start kids with violin, as you know. But I really see it as a tool for expression. So I have found ways to bring music out of kids and adults, and it's I love teaching. So
well, and this brings me back to something that I said in the introduction, and it was in your bio, that you're an empathetic teacher of creative expression. That's a different way of saying you teach people how to play violin. That's not the same thing. Creative expression is not just learning where to put your fingers and how to make it sound right. What do you mean by that? What are you teaching people to connect with in themselves through the music?
Well, I think music is like, it almost makes me cry. Like, music is just, it's the greatest tool. You know, it's just the greatest. You can play one note and just feel so much, you know, as I do. Empathetic, right? So I do, and I know that other people do. And so I think, you know, I say empathetic teacher of creative expression because, yes, I'm teaching tone, and I'm teaching intonation, and I'm teaching technique, and I'm teaching violin, but I'm really giving someone a tool to express themselves.
You're teaching them a new language.
Yeah, I'm giving them a tool that they're going to have for the rest of their lives, or maybe they've always wanted their whole lives, and now they can finally do it. I have a lot of people that come to me in middle-aged that maybe played when they were younger, and now they find some time in their life, and so I think that's equally important, if not more, than teaching a kid sometimes in adulthood to find another tool to be happy.
Well, that's interesting because if you've ever read the work of Julia Cameron, she wrote The Artist Way, and she says we're a nation of frustrated artists. You know, there's a creative side to all of us, and that we get that sort of beaten out of us through various means. You know, the school system is not always real friendly with creative expression and so forth, families also, and that there are a lot of adults that are in fact looking to reconnect with that. Do you think that mass media, in other words, I can go on iTunes Music and hear music from all over the world, but it all seems perfect, it all seems exactly right. Do you think that works against people being creative and expressing their creativity in themselves? Do we not have permission to just sort of be mediocre at it? In other words, do we feel we have to be perfect? And how do you deal with that in your students?
I just don't hold any of that with me as a teacher. I just, sure, yeah, there's a point to tell a kid when they're not playing in tune, but that's in the classroom, that's in a moment, you know, that I think music is an amazing discipline too, you know, and I don't know, mass media has its pluses and its minuses, and I think that we've always had that standard of perfection in music, always. You know, there's always been the genius who no one can play as good at. There's always going to be someone who can play better than you. And if you look at it the right way, you get inspired, hopefully.
Right. But you can also be afraid. And that's what it seems to me that American roots music and this sort of music circle that is inclusive has the potential to do, is to bring people back into that fold and say, no, it's okay, just play.
Yeah, totally. And if you listen to the old recordings of the people who are idolized in roots music, it's not clean. You know, it's messy, and in this way that was purposeful. You know, they were being messy to create more life and more rhythm and syncopation and just like a better example of what life really looks like, I think.
Well, yeah, I think the key word there is play.
Yeah.
We play music.
Yeah.
That does not mean perfection. Play is never perfect.
No, yeah.
So let's talk about the album.
Okay.
We Will Sing. You're raising some money right now. How are you going about that?
I launched a Kickstarter campaign for the record in about 5 days ago. And I am garnering support and pre-orders and getting people excited about the record through the Kickstarter. I already have 100 backers, which is awesome. And the goal is $12,000, which will support me to release the record.
Because it's already complete.
Yeah.
You recorded it.
I recorded it last year. It's weird to say last year. But yeah, last year between April and August, I had about five days plus or minus in the studio. And so, yeah, it's ready. It's mastered. And I just need some help getting it out.
So let's talk about that from a business point of view. Because artists aren't always really well known as being the best business people. What have you learned in the course of your...
Do we really have to talk about this?
In the course of your career about turning creative expression into something that's actually marketable and profitable in the world?
Well, I don't know where to start. So many inner voices. And really, what is my true voice saying? So, music is a powerful force of energy, right? I think we need it, right? We don't say we need it, but there's a lot of reasons why we need music. And
okay, I cannot let that go by. Give me a couple. Why you would say we need it, not just it's an add-on, but we actually find it necessary.
It wakes us up. It changes our perspective. It is the soundtrack to life. It's connection. It proves that you're not alone in the world.
Provides a link to the past.
But yeah, I mean, all of that, right? And the first things, as humans probably were sounds and those just our communication, it gives us so much more than just what we say, it gives us so much, and I think we really need it. And I do, I think. And so, yeah, I think my business plans are about that, It's like, we need food. So eat food, sell food, buy food. We need music. So eat music, buy music.
Make it,
sell music,
it, and pass it around.
And I think that the business side of things, I'm still learning so much and have a lot of things to learn. But, I try and just approach it from that perspective that I have something that you need, and it makes the world go round. Yeah. So why not put your money into something like that?
Excellent question. And you can start by putting your money into a Kickstarter campaign. We'll on our website we'll put the link where people can go and find how to contribute. We're out of time, unfortunately, because I think we could talk for a long time.
Yeah.
But we want to go out with a little music, of course. So here is an excerpt from the title track of your upcoming record, We Will Sing. Tell us something about this song. Just a brief introduction.
We Will Sing is a piece of music that is a reflection of my experience as an observer in the world.
Excellent. Lizzy, thanks for coming by today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And best of luck with your project.
Thank you. I will give all my heart to the one truest part, and I will open up the doors to the sounds of living, and we will sing, we
Thanks for watching. Join us next week for another great conversation on Think Radio Presents Think People.